What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today we are back in the garage with the G80, of course. And I've got the Turner Motorsport skid plate, as you can see from the thumbnail. We're gonna get that installed today. A big reason I did this, obviously for protection from the oil cooler, which is the main reason you would buy something like this, but it also looks good. These are one of those parts where it's kind of a shame because it's gonna be underneath the car, so you probably won't ever see it, but you know, it's still gonna look good. So let's jump into it. So right out of the box, you can tell the quality is really, really nice. And I'll put the link below in the description so you guys can check this out. But of course I got this from Turner Motorsports. Comes in two options. You can get the milled aluminum finish or the wrinkled black powder coated finish. The black I think looks better. Once again, you won't be able to see it, but as you guys know who follow me, I am pretty OCD about my stuff. So I think the black will keep it looking cleaner, even though it's under the car. During wash days, I will be cleaning this with my brush, so I want it to stay clean, and I think this will do a little better job than the aluminum. Plus, I think it provides a little bit of a tougher surface, being the wrinkled black powder coated finish. It is a 8 gauge 5052 aluminum, so it's pretty durable. It isn't too thick, but it's definitely thick enough that it can do some protection for any major, you know, large rocks or something that could impale the car from the road. If you're driving, that's the main reason you would do this, because the, you know, oil coolers are pretty exposed from the factory. So that's an important reason of why you want to get something like this. So another reason I got this one, well, two more reasons why I got the Turner Motorsport skid plate. Number one, it has these side pieces. So it doesn't just replace the center skid plate portion, it replaces the side flange pieces as well. So it gives protection all the way out to the in front of the wheels, which I like. Some of them are just the center portion, so that was a big important factor for me. Another reason is because it uses all the OE mounting locations. They do give you some new hardware, but a few of the bolts are going to be OE, and then the rest will be from that. So it should be a pretty basic install, and I'm just going to do a quick install video so you guys can see it, run over the process. So let's get into it. So I also wanted to point out, you know, a lot of people get these for protection, and, you know, I've seen comments before where someone's like, what are the odds of a rock hitting your oil cooler or something damaging it? So I wanted to point out this one fact, because I have the OEM in Performance front lip, which came on the 50R edition, but it's a retail at $2,600 part. So pretty expensive. So it's not something you want to see damaged. But regardless, a rock or something like a rock reflected off the road, most likely highway speed, and took a chunk, actually put a hole through the front lip right here. I'm going to show you in a second. And if it was about 8 or 10 inches back, it may have put a hole through the oil cooler, and this engine would have been in a world of hurt. So not something you want to have happen. So let me show you guys what I'm talking about. So right here, you can see, if I can get in focus. Yeah, so this is the front of the car. Huge rock took a hole, complete puncture through the front lip right there. And that's probably, you can see my finger, it's probably 1/2 inch wide. And it kind of just made some scratches right here as it went back. And if it was just a few inches back, you know, it could have put a hole through the oil cooler. So it is possible. And that definitely sucks, but it is what it is. So the Turner Motorsports skid plate will help in evading that. Obviously there's openings for cooling purposes and airflow. You can't protect everything, but if it was a larger object that could impale or something of that nature, the Turner Motorsports skid plate has a higher chance of mitigating the oil cooler from getting busted, whereas the plastic is going to get something punctured right through it. So either way, it's providing you more protection, and that's proof that something can come up and not just cause a scratch on your paint, but literally put a hole right through some carbon fiber. And the thin aluminum fins on the oil cooler are not that strong. So this is another reason why I am putting this on this car. So first things first, we got to take off the belly pan retainer, which is this plastic trim piece. And there's 11 10mm bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6, 7, and then the same 4 on the other side, equaling 11 total. So let's go ahead and pull these 11 10mm bolts off. Okay, now that we have the belly pan trim off, now we're removing the actual belly pan. And these are gonna be 14 additional bolts, 10 millimeter as well. So you've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then you've got 5, 6 up under here. Then you've got 7, 8, 2 on the other side, which is 9, 10. And then 4 up in the very front, which are gonna be right here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I think I mentioned this before. Another reason why I bought the Turner skid plate is because they took into account what the BMW engineers did originally from the factory to help with the cooling. Obviously these cars produce a lot of power, so the oil cooler, as mentioned, kind of sits right up here. So it's very exposed. But what they did is, if you look along the edges, you can see a little rubber trim, and it's a thin rubber trim. Doesn't serve protection purposes. What it does is it creates like a vacuum seal. So when this piece sits up on the oil cooler, the little rubber trim creates like a little seal. So when the air passes underneath the car, it almost creates a vacuum effect to pull the heat away from the oil cooler to help with cooling, which is very cool. So you can see the design of this one right here. Now if we cruise over to the new Turner one, obviously it's bigger, thicker. It has a little more protection here, whereas that one's fully open. This one does have some protection, so bigger objects may get ricocheted off of this, which adds further protection, but still enough opening to provide ample cooling. But what's cool is if you look here, they went ahead and integrated a rubber strip all the way around as well, and it looks like it's a little bit thicker and more substantial than the factory one, which is gonna, in turn, play that same vacuum effect when the air passes underneath the oil cooler to suck away the heat, keep it cool. So they kept into account what the engineers at BMW did, which is very, very cool. So they weren't just thinking about protecting, they were thinking about maintaining factory spec cooling as well. Before we move on to the side pieces removal, this rubber edge trim you're gonna see here, that has to be removed as well, because the Turner skid plate is not gonna utilize this. It has enough protection and cooling built-in features. So this piece you do have to remove as well. Okay, moving on to the side panels. So on the right side, passenger side of the vehicle. So you've got 1, 2, 3 10 mils, which hold the bottom side panel to the fender. Those have to be removed. And then 1, 2, 3 on the front side, which hold the panel right above the splitter. All right, now that the side piece is off, and man, you can see all this junk that's up in there. And I clean my car very consistently, but man, this is just a whole bunch of rocks. And that's what get picked up from the road. That is just crazy. But good thing we got PPF on there. Everything looks great. But all that from up under there that gets sifted through the cracks is quite a bit. So, dang, that's crazy. So now do the same thing for the other side to remove the side piece the same way we just did. Okay, so once everything is removed, I want to take a second before we put the new skid plate on. So there's the oil cooler, which is pretty exposed in the midsection from factory. But if you look around here, the skid plate that we have, the Turner skid plate now, is going to protect a lot of the subframe, a lot of hoses, the oil cooler itself, some cooling lines. So a lot of that's going to get protected, whereas right now it's all exposed. And these are pretty vital components. Now if you look back, underneath the engine itself has a pretty hefty aluminum pan itself, which comes from factory, and that's pretty well protected. So this is going to kind of further integrate that to where we have aluminum here, aluminum there, so the whole bottom of the car is super protected and all the way back. And then BMWs have plastic that go all the way down the back of the car, which part aerodynamics help flow so the air can slip under the car all the way back. and some of its protection as well. So this will really complete the undercarriage protection, which is super important, especially for the front with oil that feeds the engine itself. So let's put the new skid plate on. Okay, so now we're on the passenger side. I just installed the driver's side. So now for the passenger side, it's gonna install a little bit different, obviously, but you wanna take the skid plate, place it above this bumper trim, not between these two. So above the bumper trim, and you wanna place it to where these two mounting holes are gonna line up. So now once it's lined up, you're gonna take two of the T4 bolts that were provided, and those are gonna go in the OE mounting locations right here. So I'm gonna snug these up about 70%, but not fully tighten them down because we have a few more bolts on the backside we have to adjust first. So the usual rule of thumb of not tightening everything down fully until all bolts are seated, because positioning with anything aftermarket is never 100%, which we all know. So as you can see, these two mounting locations took two of the T4 bolts that came with it. And then these two mounting locations right here are going to replace the OE screws. So these are the 10 mils. So we're only going to use two of the 10 mil screws here, and these two will replace with the new ones from the kit. So for the fifth and final screw underneath, we're taking another OE one from the original bumper trim, and we're going to take it and place it right up here in this last trim location in the corner on this little white bracket right here. So for the backside, this skid plate has two little tongues, and those are going to sit behind this plastic piece. So the actual fender well is going to sit in front of the skid plate. These two metal tongues are going to sit right behind it, because these have built-in female ends. And then we're going to take the two T4 bolts that were provided, and those are going to screw in right here. And then we're going to take one of the original 10 mil bolts, and that's going to screw in on the third bolt right up here. Something to note is you can see how, since this is now metal and this is obviously plastic, this is less forgiving. So that's why it's important to have these other bolts loose, or 50 to 60% loose, just so it holds on, but not tight enough to where it can't move. Because these, as you can see, that little gap, it's not gonna line up correctly. So because it's loose, I'm gonna actually tighten this one down first, and that gives me room to flex and pull these two together and tighten that one. If you do these tight or do it in reverse order, because I did the left side earlier, if you tighten this one first and pull it flush, this one will not fit. Okay, install is complete. Everything is done. Car is ready to go. Skid plate is installed. I would say overall fitment was probably a 9 out of 10. I mean, like I always say, nothing is ever perfect when it's not OEM, but overall it fit very well. One thing I would say, when you're installing the main part of the skid plate, the center portion of the three, you kind of have to go at an angle up towards the front lip. And then the little front rubber piece has to fit behind the oil cooler, and then the rest kind of presses up in a tight fitment. At first I thought the whole trim would wrap around, but it doesn't. It just kind of sits on it. And it kind of gives a tight fit. So it feels like it's not on all the way, but I believe that's just how it's supposed to fit, from what I've seen, read, and experienced myself. But overall, great fit, very secure, solid product, looks amazing, even though you can't see it. So I'm super happy. Once again, thank you for watching, guys. I appreciate it. That'll wrap it up for today. Easy install, you can do it yourself. A couple easy tools and you're off to the races. So thanks a lot, and catch you guys on the next one. See ya.